Hey everyone, this is Azael Bentley. I'm a professional World of Warcraft player for Team Evil Geniuses. I'm here today to bring you a Frag University pro tip brought to you by Bigfoot Networks. Today I'm going to be talking about specs and glyphs for Affliction. I'm just going to give you a basic rundown on how I spec for Affliction and why I spec for Affliction, as well as some of the differences in specs and some of the key talents that you're going to choose between, basically. I'm also going to give you a rundown on which glyphs I use, why I use them, as well as some other viable options. So we're just going to go in game and I'm going to show you how I'm spec'd right now. As you can see, I'm Affliction. This is pretty much as standard as you can get for an Affliction arena spec. It's 54-17-0 is the talent point distribution, and it's pretty standard. Improved corruption, pretty much everyone's going to get. All of this stuff, as I'm going over it, is very, very basic. The differences that you're going to start seeing are things like this. Some people aren't going to get suppression, which gives you hit, and some people are going to get Curse of Agony, improved Curse of Agony instead. The major difference that you see here is basically people who need extra hit and they don't have it on their gear are going to get suppression, maybe even more points, 2 or even 3, and people who do have it on their gear aren't going to need to get suppression, so they're going to be able to put those talent points in things like improved Curse of Agony or Shadow Embrace, as you see down here. Shadow Embrace is a very, very good ability, and basically what it does is anytime you Shadow Bolt or Haunt a target, it's going to put a debuff on them that is increasing the damage based on how many talent points you have in it. And also, it's going to reduce healing over time based, once again, on how many talent points you have in it. So for me, with 3 talent points, every time I Shadow Bolt or Haunt someone, up to 3 stacks, it's going to increase the damage done by 3% and reduce the periodic healing done by 6%. So if I have done it 3 times, then it's going to be 9 and 18% respectively. It's obviously a very strong talent. But basically, besides that, it's all very standard stuff. It's what you're going to see pretty much every top Warlock specking, and it's pretty much the best spec all around. The differences that you see are basically just a matter of personal preference, or a matter of what setup you're playing, or simply just wanting to try something different. When you go over into Demonology, this is once again very, very standard. 17 talent points. You have Fel Synergy, which is simply going to heal your pet for damage you're doing. Demonic Embrace is going to improve your HP. Now, all this stuff is very standard, as I said. The only differences you ever really see will be over here in Improved Health Funnel. What Improved Health Funnel does is it not only increases the healing done to your pet when you're using this ability, but also gives your pet somewhat of a mini shield wall. It takes 30% less damage while you're health funneling, which is going to make it a lot easier to keep your pet up for both you, and if your healer is healing your pet as well, it's going to make their job a lot easier. The only difference that you're going to see here is sometimes people will drop Improved Health Funnel and try to get Improved Health Stone instead. This is going to give you some more burst healing from your Health Stone for you and your teammates. It can be especially useful against teams without a Mortal Strike or a Wound Poison or an Aim Shot, things that are going to reduce the healing done by your Health Stone. So this is more something that's more specific. If you're going to fight against, say, a Wizard Cleave team and you're having trouble dying to burst, but you want something that's going to help you out against that, then you can go into Improved Health Stone, because most likely, as a Warlock, you're not going to be targeted by a Wizard Cleave team. As I said, it's all very basic. The only things that you're really going to change is, well, like I said, Improved Curse of Agony. And one of the things about Improved Curse of Agony is that it can be very useful if you're playing with something that doesn't benefit from Curse of Elements. But if you're playing with, say, a Mutilate Rogue or another caster, such as an Elemental Shaman, a Mage, Shadow Priest, or anything like that, then having Curse of Elements up is actually more beneficial than having Curse of Agony. So putting talent points into Improved Curse of Agony is basically a waste, even if you don't need that extra hit. So what you're going to want to do then is keep Curse of Elements up on the target for, say, if you have a Mutilate Rogue, then it's going to improve the deadly poison damage, which in turn improves the amount that Envenom hits for. And for mages and other casters, it's pretty much going to improve all their damage by about 13%. So it's really important to have that up. And just remember that you don't always need Improved Curse of Agony, even if you have that hit on your PvE gear, simply because it's just not that useful if you're playing with another caster or someone who's going to benefit from Curse of Elements, because you're also benefiting from that. And the other thing to remember is that you can always have more resilience instead of that PvE gear if you don't end up needing that hit. Another thing that you can specify in your spec is simply adding more points into Shadow Embrace. One of the ways you can get extra points is, say, if you're doing 2v2, then you can drop even Improve Fear. What Improve Fear does is it puts a slow on the target as they're coming out of your fear. It's very useful in 3v3, but in 2v2, a lot of times you're going to struggle getting kills against a class such as a Druid. And almost all of a Druid's healing is healing over time. So Shadow Embrace is actually going to give you a fairly decent debuff that's going to reduce the healing done by them. So if you have, say, all 5 talent points in it, it's going to make it a lot easier to get a kill against a Druid team. With all 5 talent points, it's going to reduce periodic healing by 30% if you have a 3-stack and 5 talent points in it. So that's very significant. That's almost as good as having a Mortal Strike or a Wound Poison. Obviously it's harder to keep up, but still, it's very, very useful. That's about the only differences you're going to see in specs. So that's all I have to say about that for now. The next thing we'll be talking about is glyphs. Glyphs, once again, they're pretty standard. There's some glyphs that pretty much everyone is going to have as Affliction, and then there's also a couple deviations. With glyphs, it's mostly personal preference, simply because based on your playstyle, some players will favor one glyph over another. There's a couple that I'm going to recommend that I pretty much use any time of Affliction, but you can change and mix it up based on your personal preference. I'm just going to go in game and I'm going to show you the glyphs that I'm currently using and talk about a couple others that you could use instead. So Glyph of Corruption, basically the reason that I use this is, as Affliction, you're going to have Corruption up on a lot of targets. This is going to double your chance to get a Nightfall or a Shadow chance, which basically just gives you an instant cast Shadow Bolt while you're Affliction. The reason this is so useful is that it's going to give you extra burst damage. And burst damage is extremely important as an Affliction Warlock because it's something you don't have very much of. And if you're able to burst someone under 25% of their HP, then you're able to start a soul drain. And when someone's under 25% and you start soul draining them, then it's basically an execute effect, and it's going to take for a lot of damage. So Affliction is basically just about spiking someone below 25%, and this is going to help you do that. Another reason that this glyph is so good is that it works in conjunction with Quick Decay. What Quick Decay does is it's going to allow your corruption ticks to tick faster based on the amount of haste you have on your gear. So if you're gearing properly as an Affliction Warlock, you're going to have quite a bit of haste, and you could improve the speed at which your corruption ticks by up to, say, 20%. So then not only do you have twice as good a chance to proc a Nightfall, but your corruption is taking 20% faster, so with 20% faster and then double the chance as well, you're really going to get a ton of Nightfalls and do a lot more burst damage than you could otherwise do. The other glyph I use is pretty self-explanatory. Glyph of Howl of Terror is something that's just going to reduce the cooldown on your instant AoE fear. This is something that's extremely important because a lot of games are won simply on a good Howl of Terror, or in the same turn, you can lose if you're all grouped up and get Howl of Terror. The reason it's so useful is because it can hit multiple players and it's an instant cast. So if you catch the other team slipping and they're all grouped up, then you can Howl of Terror and knock them all into a fear, and it's going to allow you to set up on one of them, or simply to escape from them, peel for your partners. It's just very versatile. Another thing that's really useful is if, say, a rogue or another melee class is on you that has an interrupt and you're not able to get a cast off, then this is an instant cast spell, which is going to give you some time to get away, to get a cast off, to do what you need to do in order to win the game. Having the extra 8 seconds off the cooldown is very useful, even if it doesn't seem that big, because you would be surprised how many extra Howl of Terrors that's going to get you during the game. It brings the cooldown from 40 seconds to 32 seconds, which is almost 25% decrease. So over the course of a long game, it's going to give you quite a few extra Howl of Terrors, and even if you only have one extra, that could be the difference between winning and losing. Some of the other glyphs that people might use as this is something such as Glyph of Unstable Affliction. Personally, I feel with Eradication and the amount of haste on today's gear, you really don't need this. But if you're really having trouble getting interrupted and you really want to get that Unstable Affliction up easier, then this could be something that's going to be useful to you. It takes 0.2 seconds off of the cast, so with haste and Eradication, you're going to be dropping the Unstable Affliction cast to a very low time, which is going to make it very difficult for your opponents to interrupt. Another thing that a lot of people will use instead of Howl of Terror glyph is a Shadow Flame glyph. A lot of people do this because they say Affliction Warlocks have a lack of a really good snare. And that's true, because all you have is Curse of Exhaustion, and then you have to replace Curse of Agony, or Curse of Tongues, or Curse of Elements, which are all very good, with Curse of Exhaustion for a very minor slow. What Shadowflame does is it turns a very, well, I'd say mediocre ability into something that gives you a very powerful snare that's equal to Crippling Poison. So this is something that allows a lot of people to escape from players easier, to catch up to other players easier, and it also can work as a peel. So it's very useful if you're someone who's having trouble getting away from other players, or maybe keeping the other team off of your team. So it's something to consider. That's about it for glyphs, because those are the major ones for Affliction. I wouldn't recommend using anything outside those, and I wouldn't stray too far from the glyphs that I'm using. I'd definitely recommend at least giving them a shot before you try the other ones. My name is Azael Bentley, and I'm a professional World of Warcraft player for Team Evil Geniuses. This has been a Frag University pro tip brought to you by Bigfoot Networks. For more pro tips as well as other information, be sure to check out bigfootnetworks.com as well as www.myag.net.
By combining the speed, intelligence, control, visibility, and domination you need to compete, the Killer 2100 Gaming Network card provides the perfect blend of gaming passion and technical know-how to guarantee your gaming experience is flawless in both its speed and its performance. Find out more information at www.bigfootnetworks.com.